Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to Evolving Consciousness. This video has the potential to completely change the way you perceive reality, to permanently bring about a paradigm shift in the way you perceive reality. Of course, if you allow it to. If you are visiting this channel for the very first time, in this channel we talk about topics related to holistic development, help you become a better version of yourself. The topics predominantly include personal development, topics about spirituality, topics about life in general, and how we can become a better version of ourselves, not only creating a life which we always want to live, right? A life of fulfillment. Because let's remember, every human being, the deepest desire every human being has in his life is that he wants to feel deeply fulfilled. And if you want to live a life of that sort, this channel will provide you the beautiful nuggets of wisdom. As I share these nuggets of wisdom and probably propagate the positivity, right? Because the world needs a lot of positivity, because we are filled with so much of chaos, confusion and negativity, that these kind of contents really needs to be circulated. And if you really enjoy these kind of content, don't forget to like, share and subscribe this channel. Coming to the topic of today's video, potency of self-inquiry, right? Now, if you are someone who has remotely read any spiritual literature, you would have come across this term called self-inquiry. And most of the people who are deep into this concept of self-inquiry, probably they would have also heard of Ramana Maharishi. To folks who don't know who Ramana Maharishi is one of the most revered saints of India. He is considered to be a Jnana Yogi whose teachings still today bring about a profound sense of solace, a solace which cannot be hindered from outside situations, because it directly touches the timeless being within you. Now, why did I want to create this video on self-inquiry? Because oftentimes what happens is that when we are in this path of exploring spiritual literature, going through the various schools of thought which give you a sense of what spirituality is and how it can benefit you in day-to-day life, right? Because human beings always want palpable results. And when we endeavor in the spiritual journey, oftentimes what happens is there is this development of spiritual ego, which I say. The spiritual ego might actually, push you away from the very essence of spirituality. So it's extremely important to be very aware of these subtle elements in the thought processes. And self-inquiry is one such potent tool which can allow you to do that. I want to share a brief story about two monks. So once it so happened that the two monks were traveling across a forest, and suddenly they see a girl of about 20-25 years lying down unconscious. One of the monks immediately rushes towards that girl and he tries to lift her up. Suddenly the other monk is very upset and rattled, and he says, "You please stop, don't go. You are harming the chastity of your monkhood if you do that." The other monk just ignores what the monk was saying, and he lifts him and takes her to the nearby hospital so that she gets treated. Once they hand over the girl to the hospital, the two monks are going back to the journey. Now, after some time, this monk, who was completely pissed off by the fact that this monk had helped that girl, asked the other monk, "Why the hell did you do what you did, right? You shouldn't have helped that girl in the first place. because we are monks, we are supposed to be pure. You put your chastity in risk to help that girl, right? So you probably shouldn't have done that. Your spiritual merit, your spiritual character might go down. For that, the monk, with a brief pause, replied that, my friend, it seems that I dropped that girl in the hospital 2 hours back, but it seems you're still carrying her in your own consciousness, in your own mind. The other monk was left speechless. This is how limited our understanding of spirituality becomes at times. Because what happens is, the more we acquire knowledge, the more we go through content, we develop this false sense of ego, which makes us feel superior, right? Which gives us this false sense of superiority over others, that we know so many religious doctrines, we know so much concepts of spirituality, so we are superior to the other inferior folks. But let's not forget the crux message of spirituality. The very essence of spirituality is to cultivate the thought process of Vasudeva Kutumbakam. A sense of belongingness is the crux of spirituality. But what happens with most of the population is, when we acquire a lot of knowledge from various sources, and we tend to develop this false sense of prestige, and this false sense of prestige does not develop directly. It is actually an unconscious pride which we sort of develop within ourselves, because more the knowledge you have, the more your ego starts to inflate. So it's very essential that we are extremely conscious and mindful of our tendencies. And one powerful tool which can help us observe the tendencies of our mind is self-inquiry. Now, self-inquiry is such a powerful and a profound science in itself, right? So, during the days of Ramana Maharishi, this science of self-inquiry was confined only to the spiritual intellectuals. But now, even quantum physics talks about the concepts of the observer effect. If you want to know what the observer effect is, I will highly recommend you to Google it. So, to give a very layman understanding of what the observer effect is, observer effect says that whatever you observe, right, the nature of that particular matter changes. Waves can be collapsed into particles, and particles can be collapsed into waves based on the nature of observation. Now, this was told by our ancient rishis and seers years before quantum physics even made this discovery to mankind, right? And even neurologists, neuroscience talks about the concept of metacognition. Metacognition is what was known as Sakshi Bhav. Sakshi Bhav basically means that when you observe your thoughts from an unbiased temperament, the thoughts start to lose its power. Now, metacognition, which the neuroscience has discovered lately, also talks about the same thing, right? This only should make us more proud, and our hearts should swell with pride and gratitude that this country has blessed us with so much divine wisdom, which now the modern day scientists and neurologists are discovering. These things were very much written in our ancient texts. So powerful are these concepts. If you deeply contemplate, right, science and spirituality are not different. They are in fact the one. But science only is discovering what was told by our ancient rishis and seers years before. Now they are discovering it to be true. There are innumerable situations, innumerable examples wherein spiritual people, the ancient seers, had predicted things which scientists had discovered very late from their time zone, from their own time. How did all this happen? Now, this video is not focused on the great significance of the ancient seers and the phenomenal aspects which they gave to the world. But what I am trying to point you out, bring your attention towards, is the fact that the concepts of spirituality are so deeply integrated with science. Matter, the way the study of matter, the study of quantum physics is so deeply interlinked with spirituality that now people are beginning to unravel from a scientific standpoint all the concepts which were told eons before in our ancient spiritual texts. Now, coming back to the topic of self-inquiry. Now, self-inquiry is an indispensable tool which every spiritualist needs to utilize or needs to use. Reason being that without self-inquiring, without questioning your own belief systems, you will never make any progress towards spirituality. What you might think might not be what you are actually doing, right? So you might think that you are becoming very spiritual, but at the core of it, you might not even understand what true spirituality is. I was listening to a particular podcast by Jay Shetty, and he said something beautiful. He said that whenever he is stuck on the crossroads between a particular decision making process, he asks himself whether this decision of mine is fueled by a sense of ego, by a sense of showing to the other world, or is it coming from a sense of passion? Is it coming from a temperament of service? Is it coming from a place of compassion? And if it is the latter, then he goes ahead confidently pursuing the choice. But if it is coming from a place of ego, if it is coming from a place of showing off, if it is coming from a place of a sense of superiority, trying to prove that you are superior to the other, then he avoids that. Because let's remember one thing, once you engage in this journey, once you start in this journey of spirituality, most of us will develop this false ego within us. And it is very important and extremely important for the evolution of our own consciousness to not fall trapped to this. And self-inquiry comes to our rescue so that we avoid these pitfalls. Now, self-inquiry is not something which can only be used when you are in this journey of spirituality, but it can also be used when you are pursuing those lofty material possessions or lofty material goals. Because it gives you something so important in today's chaotic times. It provides you with a powerful sense of clarity. Because unless you're clear on things, unless you're absolutely clear on where you're going in life, nothing can help you out, right? No amount of positive thoughts, no amount of superficial positivity will help you unless you deeply contemplate on this question of who am I? Now, to talk about it, right, self-inquiry is based on these four fundamental pillars. The distinction of the four fundamental pillars: the body, the mind, the world around us, and our perceptions of it, which is also a constitute of the mind, and the timeless being, which is the self. Now, you can go about intellectualizing spirituality, spiritual concepts like saying that I am awareness, I am soul. Those are great for beginners. Those are great concepts to relish. But unless you get a sense of realization, unless you realize the aspect of the self, what does realization mean, right? That you completely declutter all the things which you are not. You uncondition the belief systems which you were possessing. There's a concept called NAPI. Right? So you completely start disregarding what is not you. Because you know you're not the body, right? Now this is not some spiritual philosophy. You truly know that you're not the body because your body was different when you were at age 2, your body is different when you're at age 20, your body is going to be different when you're at age 30, right? Now one thing is to have belief systems and another thing is to have complete conviction of what you're saying. Let me give you an example so that you understand what I'm trying to articulate here. Now you see this right hand, right? I am flexing my right hand here. I know for a fact that I have a right hand. I don't have to believe that I have a right hand, right? Similarly, when we talk about self-realization, we might garner these concepts of I am awareness, I am the soul. All these concepts are good to hear and good to relish. They give a sense of solace, but that solace is temporary. Because unless you don't have the deep sense of realization, unless you realize your own consciousness, that you are not the body mind, but you are something beyond. We can give it different names. We can call it God, we can call it self, we can call it the Atman, we can call it awareness. But that realization is the essence of self-inquiry. Once you realize who you are, once you constantly keep asking yourself this question, who am I? Without giving any intellectual answer. So let me just stress upon this aspect, right? When you question yourself, who am I? You need to stay with the question. We human beings are so naturally hardwired to answer every question without actually letting the question to sink into our consciousness. When you ask yourself this question, who am I? Right? Let's do a simple experiment. Whenever you are unoccupied, right? Just observe your own thoughts without any preconceived notions, without falling to the prey of those thoughts. Because one aspect which happens in our thought process is that once we start to mentally indulge in any particular thought, there is a chain of thoughts which come in. We don't need to do that. We don't have to indulge in that. We just need to watch those thoughts in an unbiased way, such that we are not involving in those thoughts. But it's just like we are watching those thoughts. It's just like we are watching the television, we are just watching the movie or a particular web series. We are not completely into it, but we are watching it as an observer. What happens is, immediately you start to feel moments of solace. Immediately the momentum of those thoughts cease to exist. Now what exactly happened? First I will give you a neurological explanation. Second, we'll go to the spiritual dimension of it. As per neuroscientists, right, there is a concept called metacognition, which basically says that when we observe our own thoughts, the pace of our thoughts reduces. The momentum with which they were rushing through our mind reduces. And if you look at all the meditation practices, right, all the different meditation methods which are available to us, every one of them utilizes this principle of metacognition, which is an unique quality of human brain, the quality of observation. Because when you carefully observe things, the things change. This is also confirmed by the research of quantum physicists of today. Now the spiritual explanation of it. So once you become aware of your thoughts, there is a complete destruction of that identification of the thought process with the mind. So why do we normally have this tendency to overthink, or we are not able to come out of this repetitive thought patterns? That is because we are heavily identified with the mind. The mind uses us, but we don't use the mind. For most of us, mind is ruling us. But if you want to become the ruler of your mind, you need to practice disidentifying from your thoughts. Now this is something which will come from practice, right? As any habit, as any particular habit requires some training for it to become a habit. Metacognition also needs to be practiced. The same is with any meditative practice, right? What basically are you doing? You are taking your attention towards a particular sound, towards a particular physical sensation in the body, and you are creating metacognition in your brain. Now when metacognition happens in the brain ceases to think. And when you can experience the gap between your thoughts, that is when you are experiencing the timeless being, the self, the Atman, the pure consciousness, which is the ultimate goal of self-inquiry. Now, why is this so important and why is this so powerful even for someone who has no interest in spirituality, right? Now, it is said that the subconscious mind is more intelligent and it is more powerful as compared to the conscious mind. And when you are engaged in this metacognition and when you are engaged in this zone wherein your thoughts are well controlled, subconscious is more active. And when your subconscious mind is more active, you will be in a better position to achieve all your lofty desires and goals. If your conscious mind is completely chaotic, your subconscious mind ceases to exist, right? Your subconscious mind just accepts all the chaos which has been thrown out from the conscious mind. It doesn't have a say. Let me give you a metaphorical example, right, to better understand what I'm trying to say. Let's say we have two water bodies. One water body is completely peaceful. It's a beautiful pond. And another water body is a rushing gutter, a place of immense filth. Now, let's say you are standing in between these two water bodies, right? Now, in one, if you take a small pebble and throw it in the water body, which is completely pristine, completely calm, you can see the ripples of that small pebble manifesting very clearly. But the water body which is completely disorganized, which is completely filthy and chaotic, even if you take a big boulder, big stone, a stone which is of a huge size, right, which is of considerable size, even if you throw that boulder into that water body of chaos and filth, you won't see any noticeable changes, right? So this still water, this completely still pond is indicative of a perfectly conscious mind. And even a small intention, the pebble represents our intention. Every small intention can create a ripple effect in the mind which is completely pristine, a mind which is filled with solace, versus a mind which is filled with chaos. No matter how many lofty ambitions you have, unless your mind is completely organized, unless your mind is conscious, you won't be able to achieve mastery. You won't be able to achieve all your lofty material goals as well. Hence, self-enquiry is not only helpful for a person in the spiritual dimension, but it is also a powerful tool which each and every human being in this planet can utilize to find solace, a deep sense of fulfillment, also to be more productive in the material dimension. And Ramana Maharishi says a beautiful quote. He says that self-realization is the greatest service to mankind. Now, when we talk about self-realization, right, many people have a crippled thought process that self-realization is only for ascetics or monks. But no, that's completely utter nonsense. If you look at history, right, there have been many monks who have been in the household work, but still they have reached enlightenment. And even if you don't reach enlightenment, what is more important is to become a productive, fulfilled, and a person filled with goodness, and a person who can contribute to the well-being of humanity. And this beautiful wisdom of self-inquiry can be used in any dimension of life. As I mentioned about that beautiful thought process, always question your actions. What are the intentions behind your actions? Is it coming from a place of ego? Is it coming from a place of showing something to someone? Or is it coming from a place of passion, compassion, a feeling of service, a temperament of service? If it is coming from either of these, that is the right action to pursue. That is the right decision to take. I hope this video was of value to you, and I hope you will research more about self-inquiry. And if somebody really wants to go deep dive into self-inquiry, I will recommend a book by David Gogman. He has beautifully summarized the teachings of Sri Ramana Maharishi. It is called Be As You Are. You can Google the book and probably order it and relish the wisdom which has been talked about in that book. Hope this video was of value to you, and if you really liked the content of this video, don't forget to like it, share it, and also subscribe the contents of this channel. And please don't forget to give me your valuable feedback in the comment section so that I can improve my own content and my own style of delivery. Thank you, and meet you in the next video.